Welcome to this week's Real Housewives recap. Today we're going to be talking about Salt Lake City episode 14 and Beverly Hills episode 5, and there's a lot to get into, so let's just dive right in. Starting with Salt Lake City, which I think is just miles above every other Real Housewives city right now. The women are in Mexico. This is episode 2 out of 3 of their Mexico trip. Heather, Angie, and Whitney start out by doing water aerobics, and I guess Whitney says that her husband has a family tradition where every time they go on vacation, they do water aerobics with the seniors. So they're in the pool with the water aerobics instructor, and Angie, God bless her spirit, has absolutely no rhythm. She is completely out of sync with the other 2 women and the instructor. It's really funny. I love her so much. I actually just listened to her episode on the Las Culturistas podcast, and I think she just has such a great attitude. I think she's so funny. I think she's here to play ball. Like, she really knows what she's doing, and I'm here for that. I think she's such a lovable person, and every time I see her on screen, I'm like, God, I just want to like be your friend. Like, I want to have a drink with her. I want to be like in that pool doing water aerobics, completely out of sync with her. After the water aerobics class is over, Heather, Whitney, and Angie are talking on the side of the pool, and Heather says that Bronwyn told her that after she was mauled by that dog, like those wounds looked horrible, she FaceTimed Todd and said that she was going to the ER and he wouldn't come to be with her because he assumed that it was just a scratch and she was overreacting. This episode is the one where Bronwyn and Todd's relationship finally comes into question, and I am so happy because I am so just like put off by what I see of them. I am always so wary of any relationship where the woman is completely different and unrecognizable when she's around her man. I feel like when Bronwyn is around the women, she's so fun and cheeky and she's cracking jokes and she's not afraid to like be tough and stand up for herself. And then when she's talking to Todd, I get the vibe that it's like a little girl talking to her father. She becomes very like submissive and desperate for his approval. It's really uncomfortable, and I feel like he is very like, he's stern with her in a way that makes me really uncomfortable. You just really get the vibe that it's like a disciplinarian talking to somebody who he's in charge of, and she just shrinks around him, and it's really uncomfortable to watch, and I'm happy the women are finally noticing. I mean, one time I was making breakfast in the kitchen and I accidentally nicked my thumb with a knife and it was bleeding a lot, and I texted my boyfriend in the moment. I was like, oh my God, baby, I accidentally cut my thumb with the knife. There's so much blood. He was at his house working from home, and he literally ended the meeting that he was in and called me right away because he was scared that something was really wrong, because he was like, all I saw on my phone was there was so much blood and I got scared. Like, I just can't imagine telling my boyfriend, hey, I'm on my way to the emergency room because I was bitten by a dog, and him just completely dismissing that and being like, oh no, you're fine, it's just a scratch. He would never ever do that. I was shocked when Heather said Bronwyn told her Todd did that. Later in the day, the women all meet up for a yacht day, and Lisa gives everybody Vida Tequila tote bags. Those Vida Tequila sales must be down because this whole trip is starting to feel like a Vida Tequila SpawnCon influencer trip and not like a Housewives trip. Lisa is like really pushing this a lot. I've never tried Vida Tequila. I've honestly never seen it like in stores or offered on a menu, so I don't really know like how widely she distributes it, but I'm kind of curious. Like, if you've ever tried it, let me know if it's good. And then Bronwyn gets the bag, and in the confessional, she's like, honestly, I don't know what I would do with a canvas bag. And honestly, I was laughing because I'm like, yeah, what are these like millionaires gonna do with a canvas tote bag that says Vida Tequila? You think they're like walking to their local bookstore and like buying some paperbacks to throw in there before they go to the local coffee shop? Those bags are definitely all going in the trash the second that they get home. So they get on the yacht, and Brittany says that Meredith was crying and throwing up in the middle of the night. I mean, this whole trip so far, you can definitely tell that something is wrong with Meredith. She seems like really down and like more depressed than usual and just really sullen in a way that's almost like scary. But we'll come back to that later. Lisa is talking on the yacht about how Henry is finally doing better. I don't know if you remember, I think it was earlier this season or maybe last season, she was talking about how Henry was kind of lonely and she had that birthday party for him and none of his friends showed up. I mean, it was like really sad. And then Brittany cuts in and gets jealous because I guess when she was telling the story about her daughter Olivia, nobody really cared the way that they cared about Lisa's story about Henry. I do not like Brittany. I am so sick of Brittany. I think she tries so hard hard. I think she's such a pick-me. I feel like she's really trying so hard to kind of produce herself and stir up drama where there really doesn't need to be drama. She wants to be the center of attention so badly when really just like, she's not compelling. She's just not as compelling as these other women. I just feel like she's so sensitive and she's always the victim. That is such a pet peeve of mine in people who have big victim complexes. It's so annoying. And then Bronwyn says, do you like the idea of telling us you have an announcement, or do you actually like the idea of seeing your daughter? To which Brittany says Bronwyn is a I mean, listen, do I think that Brittany cares more about what the women think about her relationship with her daughter than her actual relationship with her daughter? No, I'm sure Brittany loves her daughter, but I'm not gonna lie, I do kind of love that Bronwyn said that, because I do feel like Brittany kind of thinks that she's more to this show than she really is, and I kind of like that Bronwyn was putting her in her place a little bit. So we went from Lisa telling a story about her son to Brittany hijacking that story and trying to make it about her. Now Bronwyn hijacks the conversation and tries to make it all about her because she gets mad that Lisa doesn't defend her after Brittany calls her a And this is where the conversation kind of goes off the rails for me and I kind of lose the plot, because one second Bronwyn is talking about how she would defend Lisa if somebody called her a name. Next second, we're talking about how there's been infidelity in Bronwyn's marriage. I have no idea how we got there. But I guess Gwen saw Todd texting another woman while they were on a family vacation a few years ago. That's sad that it was Gwen seeing that. That always makes me sad when kids get involved in like their parents' marital issues. And then Bronwyn, with a straight face, tells the other women that the reason Todd cheated on her is because a fatal flaw of his is he's always looking for the best possible thing, because he's a businessman and that's what you do in business. You're always looking for the best possible like deal. If that doesn't show how messed up this marriage is and how weird these dynamics between Todd and Bronwyn are, because I know Bronwyn is smart. And when she was saying that, I was like, you are so much smarter than that. There's no way that you actually believe that is the reason why he cheated on you. But the way that she was saying it, I mean, she was just full on trying to justify it. Like, yeah, that makes sense. He's a businessman and that's what businessmen do. She sounded so dumb in that moment, and I do not believe that she is actually that dumb. And then in her confessional, Bronwyn says that she's been really lonely and she thought that these women were finally gonna be like her group of friends, and she feels like she's not fully accepted by them. And I feel like that kind of speaks to Bronwyn's fatal flaw as a first season housewife. I feel like ever since she came into the show, she's been wanting to play all sides and be friends with everyone, and she's been wanting everyone to like her, when that's not how this show works. Not everybody is gonna like you. People who do like you are at one point gonna stop liking you, and you're gonna have to make friends with other people. And it kind of feels like she wants to be like the group favorite who's liked by everyone, and whenever you're a person who's trying to do that in any situation, whenever you're trying to be liked by everybody, you're gonna be liked by nobody. And when I was watching this scene, when I was watching Bronwyn crying about this affair, I could not stop thinking like, Todd is gonna be so mad when he sees this. And then 10 minutes later, when they get off the boat, Lisa says the same thing in a little hot mic moment. She's walking to the van, and I forgot who she says this to, but she's like, oh, Todd is gonna be so pissed when he sees that. Then when they get back to the hotel, they're having their little breakout moments. Half the women are in one room, half the women are in another room. And because Meredith and Lisa have both been accused of infidelity in the past, some of the women feel like they had some things to say in defense of Todd, and some of the women begin to question whether or not Lisa and Meredith even believe what Bronwyn said. I'm not sure if we knew that Lisa's been accused of infidelity. I don't remember that coming up in the other seasons, so if that's something that's gonna like develop over the last couple episodes of the season and maybe beyond, that'll be really interesting to look at. And we know that Meredith has been accused of infidelity because Lisa has one of the most iconic Housewives lines. I think it was like last season or 2 seasons ago when she was like, Meredith has slept with half of New York. I honestly do believe that both Meredith and Seth have cheated on each other, and I don't know if they have an open marriage. I don't think so, but I do believe that at one point they were either open or they were swinging. We have a brief check-in with Mary and Robert Jr. It looks like Mary found a rehab center for Robert Jr. out of state. I wish nothing but the best for them. I made a TikTok about this a while ago, but I thought that scene where Robert Jr. kind of bared his soul to Mary about his addiction was so beautiful. I want nothing but healing and peace for that family. Say what you want about Mary. I'm not saying Mary is a good person. We still have all of those accusations about like her church being a cult and all of this stuff. I'm not saying this like excuses her past, but Robert Jr. definitely does not deserve anything but love and healing and recovery, and I'm really glad that it seems like he's on the road to recovery right now. It made me happy to see that. So then Mary shows up to the hotel in Mexico a day late, and what is she wearing? We know Mary loves a blazer moment. She likes the shoulder pads, the buttons. She kind of likes looking like a bellhop at a fancy hotel, but this outfit showing up to Mexico was really something. I mean, the baggy pants and sneaker combo with that blazer, I couldn't believe it, and I don't really have any words for it, but it's definitely one of the worst Housewives outfits I have seen in so long. Angie and Mary have a really sweet emotional reunion. I love this scene. I love their friendship. Angie talked about it on Las Culturistas a little bit. She said that their connection has just really grown and they really understand each other in a way that the other women don't. I loved it. I think it's really sweet. And then there's dinner. There's a Vida Tequila themed dinner, and this really just makes it look like a brand trip. I think it looks so tacky with like the Vida in the background, and it just looks so like promotional, just like bleh. Meredith looks horrible. She just looks so tired and sad, and Brittany almost immediately brings it up, and in front of everybody brings up the fact that Meredith was crying and throwing up last night. Meredith is super unhappy about it, shuts it down immediately, you know, in the way Meredith does, just like, I'm not talking about it. She says she wasn't throwing up, but she does say that she was crying because she was really upset about the slut shaming at her bat mitzvah, and she did cry about it. Angie jumps in and goes, do you think that you're actually resolved with me or not? Lisa immediately tries to get in between Angie and Meredith, and Angie shuts it down. She points at Lisa. She goes, you stay out of it. I was like, and the rest of this dinner is so interesting because it feels like Lisa is trying so hard to be the queen bee, and none of the women are letting her have it. Lisa is trying so hard to shut Angie down, but then Whitney comes in and says things only matter when they're about Lisa's feelings, and when they're about everybody else's feelings, Lisa doesn't care. Lisa calls Whitney a lying. I feel like is really getting thrown out a lot this episode. I don't remember the last time they were calling each other names this much. And Lisa is trying so hard to be the boss here, and everybody is shutting her down. Really, the only person who's on her side is Meredith. And then finally, Angie says that Bronwyn today has been more open about her life and has revealed more information than Lisa has in years. And then Lisa starts crying and storms out and says she's gonna leave. And that was the end of the episode. It feels like things are really gonna pop off next episode. I'm so excited. I again just feel like Salt Lake is leagues above the other cities right now. These women are just bringing it. I'm really interested to see where Lisa ends this season. I think she thought this Mexico trip was gonna go so differently, and it was gonna kind of put her into like one of the queen bee roles, and it's just not. I feel like her marriage was kind of touched on a little bit. If we're gonna get more into that, I think that's gonna be really interesting because I don't know if that's something we've really spoken about with her before. Moving on to Real Housewives of Beverly Hills episode 5. This episode was a lot tamer than Salt Lake. I feel like really there's not much to touch on. I love Jennifer Tilly. I feel like Brittany from Salt Lake really needs to take notes from her on how to be a lovable friend of. I feel like Jennifer kind of stays in her lane. She knows what she's there to do. She's there to be fabulous. She's there to accentuate what's already going on screen. She doesn't need to be the center of attention. I love her. I don't love her creepy doll Tiffany. Really hate Tiffany, no offense. I have a fear of dolls. I've had a fear of dolls ever since I was a kid. I think Tiffany is so creepy. I cannot imagine having that in my house. I mean, she's just so cool. Her ex-husband was one of the creators of The Simpsons. She divorced from him kind of amicably, it seems, cashed her check, and now she's a professional poker player. That's so cool. Kyle is throwing her first party without Mauricio. Her, Jennifer, and Sutton talk a little bit about the fight with Dorit at dinner the other night. I don't know whose side I'm on. I don't know if I'm on anybody's side because right now I really don't like Kyle and I've never liked Dorit. And it seems like right now Team Dorit is kind of the popular opinion and I just don't know if I could ever call myself Team Dorit. I think she is insufferable. I mean, I definitely think that anybody who's Kyle's friend right now has a tough job because Kyle is going through the hardest time in her life. And I also would be upset if my friend was going through a hard time and just didn't talk to me for months and months just because I said one thing that pissed them off. But I do think maybe Dorit can have a little bit of grace for Kyle. I mean, Jesus, like her best friend ended her life last year. I feel like I also probably wouldn't want to talk to a lot of my friends for 6 months. This was very shocking to me as somebody born and raised in LA. Garcelle is moving to Oxnard. Oxnard is nice. There's nothing wrong with Oxnard, but it's over 40 miles away from LA. That's like an hour away without traffic. With traffic, it could take her like a solid 2 hours to get to LA. A lot of people have like beach houses there, second homes there, but it looks like Garcelle is properly moving there. Like it looked like her and Sutton were packing up all of her stuff so she could live there. I mean, the house looks beautiful. She basically tore down and rebuilt the whole thing. It looks really nice. I'm just shocked that she's moving so far away. I feel like that should make filming this show interesting. Erica is talking to somebody. I think I missed the intro of this person. I don't know who she is. I don't know if it's her therapist or her assistant or an interior designer, but she's talking to her about how she's finally out of survival mode after the controversy with Tom. I'm gonna be honest, I am so sick of talking about Tom and the lawsuit. I'm so sick of talking about it, and the reason why I'm so sick of it is because Erica keeps trying to get us to see her as a victim. And I'm not saying I think she was in on it with Tom. I don't think she was in on it with Tom. I believe that truly she was just letting the money come in and she kind of didn't care where it was coming from and didn't want to know. But at the same time, this woman is not a victim. The real victims are all of these people who went through horrible accidents who Tom then swindled money from. I cannot believe we're still talking about these earrings. I don't care about the earrings. I don't want to hear about them. I don't think that she's a villain. I just also don't think that she's a victim. Then we get to Kyle's Denim and Diamonds party. I don't know what it's like in other states, but growing up in California, women from LA specifically are so obsessed with cowboy culture and country music. Is it like that in other states that are not the South? I mean, growing up when I was in college, all of my friends loved going to this 18 and over bar called Borderline, and they would go line dancing. When we were in high school, all of my friends listened to country music. If they sang country songs. And I always thought it was so funny because none of my friends had any Southern roots. They were just all super obsessed with like country culture. Anyway, Camille shows up. It was cool to see her. I always love when they bring an old housewife back. And then Bose goes up to Kyle and smacks her butt from behind, and Kyle completely doesn't react at all. And Bose is like, I can't believe you didn't say anything. I just slapped your ass. And I feel like Kyle didn't react because Mauricio used to do that to her all the time. If you've seen the earlier seasons, I swear he used to go up to her and do that in the kitchen all of the time. And I feel like that's why Kyle didn't react. I actually think she's so used to it. Now we're in the last like 10 minutes of the episode, and this is where it kind of finally pops off. We learn that PK and Kyle still text. Listen, like, I get that you're friends. I'm friends with some of my friends' husbands too, but not like on a level where I'm texting them separately. I just think that's weird. I think that's so weird. And if one of my friends divorced her husband, I would never like still text him memes and jokes on the side. I don't care if like that's kind of the relationship we used to have. I'm friends with your wife and you are my friend's husband. I'm not like your best friend. Do you know what I mean? I do think that's really weird, and if I was Dorit, I would be mad, and I am 100% certain that PK is the one initiating it. I've always thought that he was such a pig. Kyle and Dorit start rehashing their fight again, and Dorit says that she doesn't like that Kyle punishes her when Dorit says something that pisses her off. And then I don't even remember how this came up, but I just remember Dorit saying something and I think somebody telling her to shut up, and then Garcelle goes, "We've been trying to get Dorit to shut up for years." I love how much Garcelle hates Dorit. I love it because I also hate Dorit. And I love that Garcelle is not shy about how annoying Dorit is. That was so funny. I love that. I was laughing. That's like the first moment of the episode where I really and truly laughed. Then Bose takes her place in this fight and she kind of goes toe-to-toe with Sutton and says that Sutton is weaponizing Dorit's vulnerability. So curious to see if Bose and Dorit form a friendship over the rest of the season. I remember they really liked each other when they first met in episode 1. Camille, for some reason, brings up her house burning down. I guess she's trying to prove that all of the women here have been through something. Remember when my house burned down? Wasn't that like 15 years ago? And then Dorit calls her a I completely forgot that Dorit called Camille a few seasons ago, and that was a fight between them. I completely forgot about that. I forgot they ever met. That is not funny to me. I think you can call somebody a bitch if you're kind of trying to make a joke, but I feel like you can't call somebody jokingly. Like, Dorit kept telling Camille, oh, it was a joke, get over it. But like, Dorit, no, it wasn't. You know you meant it. She's trying to kind of cop out of it by saying that it was a joke, but I don't believe that for a second. And then at the end of the episode, it sort of looks like Kyle and Dorit put the fight to bed. Maybe, it honestly seems like maybe they're both just tired of talking about it, so they agree to like make up for a bit. This is the last episode of Beverly Hills until the new year. I didn't realize until right now that they're taking a break, so we'll see what it's like when they come back. I feel like Beverly Hills over the last couple seasons has been maybe like a little too sad. I'm really just ready for Kyle to stop being the focus. It feels like Kyle isn't having fun anymore. I don't even know if she wants to be on this show, but she seems miserable, and it's always so hard in the Housewives when the lead housewife, her storyline is just like how depressed she is. That's not fun to watch. But that's it about Beverly Hills. I feel like I went through that really quickly, and Salt Lake, there was so much to talk about, which just goes to show like how great Salt Lake is compared to the other cities. I did also watch Real Housewives of Potomac, but I feel like this video would just be way too long if I got into it. So if you want to hear some Potomac recaps, let me know and I can always make a separate video. Actually, it looks like Potomac has a new episode airing on December 22nd, and Salt Lake's next episode airs on Christmas. So that's perfect. I'll see you next week and we'll talk about Potomac and Salt Lake. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this recap, and if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe before you go.